Episode 9. Noah's black eyes turned chillingly cold. The surveillance video captures your conversation clearly. Yet, you still deny it in front of me. River locked eyes with him, her gaze firm. Noah, I have no reason to deny such accusations. Stop trying to tarnish my name. Tarnish your name? Noah dragged her out of bed and brought her to the computer in the study. He played the surveillance video provided by Reuben. As River watched the scene from the private room, it felt like a nightmare unfolding before her. Her body trembled uncontrollably. However, her face turned ashen when she realized the part where she asked for the 2-day extension was missing. The remaining dialogue twisted the narrative, portraying River as someone who deliberately sought them out, attempting to evade her debt by offering herself to them instead. How do you explain yourself? Noah's voice boomed above River, dripping with cold sarcasm. She offered a bitter smile. How else could she possibly explain it? The surveillance video had clearly been manipulated, but she lacked any evidence to prove it. Say something. His angry roar made her involuntarily tremble. Overwhelmed by a profound sense of injustice, she helplessly closed her eyes. What else can I say? Her indifferent response only fueled his frustration and annoyance. She always responded this way. Whenever she couldn't defend herself, she would surrender, leaving herself at the mercy of others. She had done the same in the surveillance video, as well as now, standing in front of him. Disgusted, he averted his gaze and issued a cold warning. From now on, you are not permitted to leave the villa, except for work. River looked up at him in disbelief. Who are you to take away my freedom? I am your superior. With those words, Noah stormed out and slammed the door behind him. River was left speechless on the spot. The dull ache in her heart reminded her of how inferior her status was. Battling physical and mental exhaustion, she steadied herself by leaning against the table. Suddenly, her eyes caught sight of a locked drawer in the center. She stared at it, entranced. She knew all too well what lay inside, the source of Noah's vulnerability. It was the place where he once tightly embraced her while he was drunk. In a moment of exhaustion, he murmured, "River, everyone thinks I'm invincible, but do you know where my weakness lies? It's in the drawer in the study. Every time I open it, my heart is consumed by excruciating pain." That was the first time she witnessed him being so disappointed and dejected. At that time, she remained unaware of what was kept inside the drawer. She couldn't fathom what had caused such desperation in a formidable man. However, now, a sense of realization washed over her. The contents of the drawer must be connected to Daniela. After all, Noah had been desperately searching for her. The thought of it intensified River's anguish. After breakfast, River wanted to go to the hospital to visit her mom, Katie. As she opened the villa door, she came face to face with Reuben. "Ms. Healy, Mr. DeMarco has instructed that you can't leave unless it's for something important," he stated. River frowned. "I want to go to the hospital to see my mother." Reuben took out his phone. "I need to ask for his approval." Her anger intensified as she watched him dial Noah's number. Had she somehow offended him? Even if the events in the surveillance video were true, he would simply be more disgusted and want her gone. So, why was he forcing her to stay? Reuben hung up the phone. "Ms. Healy, let me give you a ride." Suppressing her frustration, River walked past him and got into the car. 30 minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. Reuben accompanied her to the ward and paused at the door as she entered. River's eyes welled up with tears upon seeing her mother in the ward, weakly eating stew. She pulled her mask up to cover her red and swollen face before approaching her mother. "Mom." Katie looked up wearily and managed to smile. "River, you're here." Then, she frowned. "Why are you wearing a mask?" "River shut down beside Katie. I caught a cold. I don't want to risk infecting you." Katie inquired, "Are you still running a fever?" River reassured her, I'm fine. Just focus on taking care of yourself. After spending some time with Katie, River decided it was best to leave. Katie had just undergone chemotherapy and needed rest. River didn't want to disturb her mother's recovery. As she exited the ward, she noticed Reuben still standing by the door. Coincidentally, Scott approached with a nurse by his side. His face brightened upon seeing River. Before he could say anything, Reuben positioned himself between them. Her gaze now blocked, River glared at Reuben, displeased. What is the meaning of this? Reuben responded, Miss Healy, Mr. DeMarco has forbidden you from interacting with any men. River trembled with anger. Dr. Wilson is my mother's attending physician. Our conversations solely revolve around my mother's condition. Reuben offered no response. He turned to face Scott. Dr. Wilson, I suggest you refrain from discussing any irrelevant matters, other than her mother's illness, if you don't want to cause trouble. A furrow formed on Scott's forehead. He spoke earnestly. What do you mean? Reuben retorted, I have no obligation to answer any of your questions. Scott then shifted his gaze to River, who stood behind Reuben. River, are you in trouble? River bit her lip and shook her head. No, I'm fine. Goodbye. With clenched fists, she walked towards the elevator. She couldn't reveal her situation, nor did she want to bring trouble upon Scott. Once inside the car, River received a WhatsApp message from Scott. Scott wrote, Are you in some kind of trouble? River replied, No. Please take good care of my mother. Scott responded with a sighing emoji. We're friends. Let me know if anything happens. I can help you. However, River politely declined his offer. I'm fine. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. It was a Monday morning. After waking up, River freshened up and came downstairs. She spotted Noah seated at the dining table, sipping his coffee. It had been 2 days since they last saw each other. She approached the table and took a seat opposite him. After contemplating for a moment, she questioned, When will you stop having them monitor me? Noah looked up at her. Listen to me and remain here if you want your mother's medical expenses to be taken care of. I've always paid for my mother's medical fees with my salary. River erupted in anger. Over the years, she had relied on her hard-earned salary to settle her father's debt and cover her mother's medical bills. Why was he now using her mother's medical expenses as a threat? Noah sneered. You're free to leave if you want to forfeit this job. River instantly clenched her fists tightly. You're blackmailing me. So what? Noah responded indifferently. Do you think you can survive without this job? He could provide her with a salary far superior to other employees, but in return, she had to be obedient. However, lately, she had been growing defiant. She smiled warmly at a male doctor to settle her mother's medical expenses. She even sought favor from individuals in the casino to repay her father's debt. As long as she asked him, he could fulfill all her needs. Yet, she never did. He wondered how long she could stubbornly hold her ground in front of him. River gazed helplessly at his dignified and handsome face. Unable to find a way to break through their discussion about money, she decided to shift the conversation to a different topic. Aren't you concerned that Daniela would be hurt or angry if she found out about all this? She asked cautiously, studying his expression. Regrettably, he replied with a stoic expression, That's not your concern. The next day at 8 o'clock in the office, River excused herself to use the restroom while Noah was in a meeting. She accidentally bumped into Daniela, who was washing her hands. River quickly averted her gaze after glancing at Daniela, but Daniela smiled and remarked, Ms. Healy, you're quite dedicated. Coming to work even after being beaten up so severely. River's hand stiffened. Was Daniela present that night? Could it be that Noah rejected the call because of Daniela's presence? With a composed expression, she replied, Miss Love, please refrain from meddling in my affairs. But Daniela's smile only grew brighter. Didn't Noah get angry at you? River straightened her posture and regarded Daniela with a cold gaze. What exactly are you trying to insinuate? Deliberately, Daniela took a tissue to dry her hands. If my assumptions are correct, Noah must despise you now, doesn't he? After all, no one appreciates a woman who tries to settle a gambling debt with her body. In that instant, River understood the implications behind Daniela's words as she recollected the altered surveillance video. Daniela had set her up. How could she do that? It's all because of her that I'm now subjected to such humiliation and surveillance. What a bitch. The more River thought about it, the angrier she became. Daniela, do you have a grudge against me? River demanded. A smirk formed on Daniela's face as she stepped forward. Of course, I have a grudge against you. You're attempting to snatch my man, River. Can't you see how furious I am? You seem completely oblivious to it. Why would you dare pursue the man I desire? Seeing as how your family is nothing but a bottomless pit, do you really think any man in this world would genuinely give you his heart? River suddenly found Daniela's arrogant behavior amusing. She replied calmly, "What's the matter, Ms. Love? Feeling threatened by my abilities, academic qualifications, and appearance? Is that why you can only mock me by referencing my family?" Hearing that, Daniela's face contorted into a hideous expression.
Full story is available at novelpalace.com. Click the link in the comment section to get it free.